Hey, this is Courtney Barnett. You're listening to 88.5 WMNF Tampa.
The opinions presented on the Healthy Steps show are the evidence-based opinions of Dr. Fred Harvey, the callers, and his guests. These are not the opinions of the staff, the volunteers, or the board of WMNF. The information provided on the show is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. There is no implied patient-physician relationship in these calls. The nature of the calls is educational and informational only.
Hello there to you, my dear listener. You who is just beyond my reach, but at the same time you seem as close to me as the freckles on my skin. Words cannot adequately express my great joy that you keep your radio dial tuned to WMNF Tampa, your resistance radio station from Tampa Bay to the Gulf of Mexico, and the only judicious community-supported radio station that Ray Kinsella and Terrence Mann stream when they're together. And you can stream us as well at WMNF.org. Sometimes I feel like I'm walking on sunshine when we have an AMA Monday, the Ask Me Anything ingredient to the Healthy Steps radio show, and that is because of you, my friend. You make this show special. And you know what you can do there, my clever friend. Just give us a call and express your medical questions or concerns by dialing 813-239-9663. It's worth the call just to say good morning to Maddie, the bright North Star answering the phones today. So that number again is 813-239-9663. Or you can send an email to dj@wmnf.org or send us a text at 813-433-0885. Good morning to you, Dr. Harvey. AMA Monday is always a great day. Unlike any other day of the week, anything is possible and the unexpected is to be expected. Let's crank up the show. What have you got for us today, Dr. Fred?
Well, good morning, Bill, and thanks for that intro.
Well, always grateful to do it for you there, Doctor. How are things going up there?
It is actually really beautiful. I'm sitting here in my hotel looking out at Central Park. I came up to see an amazing play this weekend. Gotta take care of your soul to keep things moving forward. And I saw a play when I was 12 called Waiting for Godot. It was on PBS. I was one of those geeky little kids that spent a lot of time on PBS.
Cool.
And it inspired me. Samuel Beckett's play is about challenges that we all face every day in our existence. And watching Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, revisited from an adult philosophical point was amazing because it really inspired me to think about life a bit differently. And that's what great art does. And the health of America is in jeopardy right now because we have an administration that wants to jeopardize our spiritual health because it's killing the arts. It's killing healthcare. And that brings me to the article that I actually looked at this week to inspire me to talk to you about our current predicament. Wired, the magazine Wired, September-October edition, has the cover says, "Are we healthy yet?" And it has a picture of our Health and Human Services Secretary, RFK Jr., on the cover. He doesn't look very healthy in the picture. The article that is the most interesting and got me laughing and crying at the same time is called Operation Influence. And it's really interesting. RFK Jr. is not a doctor. He has no idea about anything healthcare. He's a lawyer who wants to put pharmaceutical companies out of business because they've made vaccines. And so he's not really the guy that's going to be helping health get better in America. And it's really interesting who he hangs out with and who else is involved in the whole let's get healthy, make America hurt always plan. So a top aide with RFK Jr. Is an owner and founder of an online wellness marketplace where you can buy all kinds of good wellness tools, unregulated, of course, by the FDA, or unstudied also. And this guy's sister is a doctor who decided not to complete her residency, but instead she became an influencer. And she likes to tout, the usual things that the wellness community does: no dyes in foods and no mercury in vaccines. Well, they've taken most of the mercury out of the vaccines, but she's an influencer. Her business is promoting wellness sales, and she's been nominated for the Surgeon General. The head of CMMS, the Medicaid and Medicare Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz, he appears to have received massive payments from the companies whose supplements that he pushed, the supplements that had virtually no evidence for what he was talking about. People have researched it and found that over half of the medical claims he made on his show were not supported by science. And that brings us to the problem with the current administration's approach to health. It's a word called pseudoscience. And so what they do is propagandize and spin a little bit of truthful science into something that isn't real. It's pretty sad, but it's true. This is what they do. And the people involved in supposedly making American healthy are people who actually have a vested interest in selling supplements and other things to supposedly improve your wellness. And some of the things that the article went on to talk about are just brilliantly amusing. And unfortunately, selling billions of dollars worth of stuff to people that doesn't do anything. Well, the first thing they talked about was facial massagers. I think you've seen them. They're little roller things, little 6-inch long handled things with a 3-inch or 2-inch little roller. You put it in your freezer and it chills. And so then you roll this over your face, and it supposedly takes away your puffy face, which apparently is now called cortisol face, the stress face. Well, the real way to get rid of puffy face is get good sleep and stop stressing out. But the facial massagers don't do anything, really. Mouth tape, that's another big one. I think Joe Rogan's been has talked about mouth taping, and a lot of people do. It can cause some problems for people that don't have good nasal airflow. In fact, one article I read was talking about possible asphyxiation. I doubt it. I think you'd rip the tape off first. But there's not a lot of evidence clinically anywhere that mouth taping would help. I mean, if you have sleep apnea, you really need to get sleep apnea treated. Mouth taping is not going to do it. The third one I talked about is a little controversial for me because it was very close to my heart, and that is IV vitamin therapies. And as a physician, I used IV vitamin therapies for people that had specific problems that I was actually trying to fix with specific therapies. One of them is called chelation therapy. It has great evidence that it works and even works better in diabetes. However, the second study they did, done by the same cardiologist, was designed to fail. The way they designed the ITEC study for ivermectin to fail. The first study, they watched the people for 5 years and saw ever increasing benefit. This one, they shut off at, I think, 18 months. So they cut off the benefit at 5 years so we can't see it. And so they're not going to give us the data because they stopped following these people. So now that chelation therapy has been supposedly disproven by a faulty study, nobody wants to do it. They want to get a stent that Medicare pays for or their insurance pays for. The other IV vitamin therapy is the problem I see is that influencers have developed lots of IV lounges all around the world. Well, primarily around America. Americans spend the most money on this stuff compared to any other nation on the planet. Like, we spend twice as much as the 5 nations behind us. And so Americans are getting marketed stuff that's useless. I really cut back on my regular IV vitamins when the IV lounges in Sarasota opened up with no doctors. They had a medical director afar, but you'd walk in and order your IV from a receptionist. No nurse practitioner, just maybe an LPN on staff to give you an IV. Licensed practical nurse. Very good nurses, by the way, but not able to make a diagnosis and tell you which IV you need, and nor is the receptionist. Hangover IVs are fluff. And all of this stuff they're talking about is fluff. So if you want to get an invasive medical procedure, stuck something in your arm, which could induce an infection, a medical reaction, or other problems without any diagnosis or necessarily need for it, that's a little crazy to me. And then they talk about dietary supplements with specific claims. Those are the ones you need to watch out for. The one that gets me is called Prevagen. Prevagen is this jellyfish extract they say fixes Alzheimer's. But it's one clinical study that I saw when they were touting all this great research was that it improved your quality of life by 10% or something like that. It didn't even fix memory. Probiotics are another one. I've used probiotics quite often, but I use them for specific acute use. I used to have chronic use of them, but I don't see a point in that because if you eat well, you get probiotics. So if you get locally fermented sauerkraut and other pickled vegetables, you're getting naturally fermented foods with local probiotics from your environment that support you. But really, specific acute use in antibiotic-associated diarrhea and Clostridium difficile, there are organisms that really help put that to bed. Irritable bowel syndrome seems to be helped, but there's little evidence for long-term use and little evidence for healthy people. And it does not alter the microbiome. The probiotics that you take pass through your body. They're out in 2 weeks. They don't change the whole thing. What you do to change your microbiome is change your diet, change your exercise, change your sleep patterns, change your stress patterns, and your microbiome changes. And the best one I see a lot of, really, truly, way too much, is parasite cleanses. Parasite cleanses. I was just reading this thing about an influencer who owns one of those supplement brands says that 90% of Americans have parasites. And then they scare you into what you need to do about it, showing you these pictures of horrible parasites made by AI pouring out of your body. And, you know, I've been looking at this stuff for 30 years in functional and integrative holistic medicine. And the best lab in the country, the one with the highest rate of returns, gets about 20 to 25% recovery on symptomatic individuals. Most of the people walking around are not infested with parasites. So all these parasite cleanses that people feel like doing, they can have at it, but what a waste of money and potential risk to your belly health. And I have watched so many people submit stools and have no parasites, or the parasites they have are called commensals, ones that come when you're already sick. Treating them doesn't help. I've watched. There is actually no treatment going on that would change anything there, and so it's really amazing. But I got to tell you, this is a really important subject to me, and I would really like to talk to some of you about what's going on in our neighborhood, locally even. What are you seeing that is challenging you and making you think you need to get these wellness things that are going to change your life forever? Remember, there's no such thing as a panacea. Nothing cures everything. Acai bowls aren't going to do it, and neither is berberine. But if you'd like to talk, this is the Healthy Step Show. I'm Dr. Fred Harvey.
Absolutely, and I'm going to make that perfectly easy for you all. If you have any medical questions or concerns, just give us a call to the Healthy Steps Radio Show with Dr. Fred Harvey here on WMNF Tampa. Joe is taking the calls, so that number is 813-239-9663. Once again, just give us a call at 813-239-9663, or you can send your emails to dj@wmnf.org. Back to you there, Doctor.
Well, thank you. There's some other things that I think are pretty amusing, too. I see all these ads for mushroom coffee. And actually, walking around here in New York, there's actually coffee shops that are just doing mushroom coffee. And they tell you that you're going to get less jitters. Well, it's probably because there's no caffeine in it. Or if there is, it's much reduced caffeine. Mushrooms, they are a great food. They're really a great food. And certain mushrooms have certain benefits that stimulate maybe your immune system to stand up and do a better job, or to modulate some of the inflammation in your brain and help your brain chemistry work better. And some of them, the psychoactive ones, they can actually change the way your hard wiring has been laid down so you can break patterns like PTSD and chronic anxiety and depression. But they're not a panacea. They need to be used in conjunction with good therapy to help you understand what was going on to trigger the problem in the first place. And none of them are, again, panaceas. You're not going to take lion's mane and then find out you're Einstein the next day. You're not going to take maitake or turkey tail mushrooms and have your cancer disappear overnight. There's nothing that happens like this. But when you eat mushrooms throughout your whole life, you actually have a better likelihood of less problems. In fact, mushrooms are a very interesting fungi, are a very interesting organism, and they have a lot of properties in there that mimic both plants and animals. They're kind of between us both. And one thing that mushrooms contain is a lot of sulfur compounds. Sulfur compounds help with detoxification. And they have interesting phytochemicals, things like glucans, which are unusual, and they aren't recognized by our body, and they stimulate our body to act differently. And so, yeah, they're really great mushrooms, and I would recommend that you eat them. Get fresh lion's mane, slice it up like steaks and fry it in the pan. But you don't have to take lion's mane supplements. And I got to tell you, I've tasted quite a few of these smoothie things, and oh boy, I could give them up forever. I'd rather have some food rather than putting every phytonutrient known to man into a glass full of kind of thick, pasty swill. I'm just not interested. I think that humans have eaten food for, I don't know, 200,000 years that we've been walking around as Homo sapiens. Or Homo erectus. I think that we we really need to look at food as our source for our nutrition, not these things. I mean, we may get to a point where we've crowded out the planet enough that we have to eat things out of cans all the time, but I'm hoping that we find our senses and continue a nice relationship with nature, of which we are a part. That said, going from mushroom coffee, to another thing that showed up since I've been actually doing integrative holistic functional medicine, and that is the coffee enema. The coffee enema. I bet some of you out there have tried them. And for some people with chronic constipation, I've actually said, go ahead and try it. It's an enema. They tend to work for constipation. But I don't know that there's any specific benefit for putting coffee in your enema and seeing that it helps to do detox. There was one article that I read on PubMed, the National Library of Medicine, that suggested that there might be some overall benefit, but it didn't really, it wasn't specific. I think it was a kind of a quality of life thing. Nobody was curing cancer. Nobody was ending diabetes. None of these things were happening as the miraculous testimonials would have suggested. But instead, there was no big change. So actually, I did a little bit of research, and it's really strange, but 2 people died from coffee enemas in the 2 years prior to a clinical study that I read. I don't think coffee enemas are dangerous. I think people can die from doing enemas because they do them inappropriately. If you induce pain when you're doing an enema, you may want to consider that you should stop it and get some help. And so I don't think coffee enemas are unsafe any more than any other enema is unsafe, but it's just not going to result in the kind of changes that we're really looking for. And I'm looking for some change too. It seems that actually we have a pretty quiet day today. And I just want to remind people, this is an interactive radio show. You can ask me anything. We don't have to stick to the topic that I started with. please give us a call here at WMNF.
Actually, we do have a couple that have just called on in, Joel and Sarah, but I do want to remind folks this is the Healthy Steps Radio Show, and if you are just tuning on in, you are invited to participate. We want you to join us by calling 813-239-9663 and send your emails to dj@wmnf.org. Again, give us a call at 813-239-9663 and focusing on your medical questions or concerns. And let's go on off to Joel.
Hello, Joel.
Thank you, Dr. Harvey. I suggest you go to Baja California, Mexico, and visit the Gerson Institute for Healing. You'll understand how they integrate coffee enemas in a whole body therapy for healing. It's quite extraordinary. It's effective. There are clinics around the world.
Well, actually, I would question what you just said there. They're effective. They're effective in helping with constipation, just like any other enema, but they don't do any other thing that has been proven through any kind of evidentiary exploration.
Without visiting the Gerson Clinic.
Well, yeah, you could visit the Gerson Clinic and see how beautiful it is and see the things that they do, which they do juicing and they do, vegetarian food eating and they do some massage and some other therapies. But coffee enemas don't change anything else about what they do.
It's not important to talk about that because in my 36 years of teaching, I too have admonished my students to the voodoo health claims of wellness people, so-called health people.
Yes, actually, and even Max Gerson was called out for doing voodoo and had to be run out of the country because he was claiming he was curing cancer with his inane and ridiculous claims. So they sent him to Mexico where he does his thing. But you know what? There are some really good hospitals in Mexico, in places like Rosarita, that do really good medical work.
I would sometimes invite people with theories of healthcare that were questionable to me. In 36 years of teaching adults at Hillsborough Community College, I would question them, and I would invite them on my radio show anyway, and to give them a chance to talk about a therapy that they profess that with an open mind, if one person benefits by it, why, we've put some information out that might help one person.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but testimonials are a way of talking about how one person gets helped by something. But quite often, testimonials don't tell the whole picture. And if one person gets helped, but 10 people get hurt and 1,000 people waste their time on it, why would we talk about it? That's why I do some vetting before I allow someone to, when I was doing interviews on here, I wasn't bringing on people that had no evidence, like Mehmet Oz did on his TV show. And so I really thank you for your input. And I do know that Max Gerson did some pioneering work in good food eating, but his clinic is a little questionable if they're still using coffee enemas.
Okie dokie. I do have Sarah and David and Leon. Let's go to Sarah. Good morning, Sarah.
Yes. I know
Hi there.
I called and asked you. Hi. I know I've asked you this before, but honestly, I've forgotten what you've advised, and I don't know how to retrieve the archives. So now that we've switched time again, I call the next 3 months for me the dark months. I already have a very high genetic predisposition to all sorts of depressions. And once we go off daylight savings time, it just seems like I have no energy.
No energy all day long, or no energy at specific times of the day?
No energy all day long. And when I used to live in a northern climate back in the 90s, I was prescribed a light box, which I used.
Yes.
However, I live in Florida now, And I just wonder, I want to make this brief, so I just wonder if you could reiterate for me, and probably hopefully other listeners can benefit, best pharmacological approach you have found in your years of practice to depression, particularly seasonal depression. And
I don't use pharmacology for depression or seasonal depression because there's no evidence that pharmacology actually works for depression or seasonal depression. That's a really very provocative statement, I know, but when you look at the long-term use of antidepressants, there's no evidence for it. And so if you want to shock your mood for 3 months, yeah, there are things you can do. I would recommend that you get out in the morning when it's light and get light on the back of your legs. I would recommend that you get to sleep when you're tired at night and get up when you get up. If you happen to wake up at 4:30 in the morning, get up and do stuff. If you have to nap in the afternoon, nap in the afternoon. But treat your body with respect, and when you're tired, lay down. We can deal with seasonal dysphoria, seasonal mood change by doing things that stimulate us. And you can definitely get a light box when you're in Florida.
Okay. So are there any other, if you don't do antidepressants, supplements or anything like that besides natural sunlight?
I think the things that I just told you to do, changing your routine, and then also you could work with don't do as much caffeine if you're using it, maybe 1 cup in the morning, and not use it as a fuel for the day. And you could try some melatonin at night, a small dose, like 0.5 milligram or 1 milligram, to see if you get to sleep better. But it's only something that helps you to to get to sleep, not to stay asleep. Tryptophan is an amino acid that turns into serotonin and melatonin and helps to lift your mood slightly. And so a little bit of tryptophan might be useful, especially for people who don't eat a lot of meat, because you only get your tryptophan out of meat and milk. It's primarily in animal proteins. There is tryptophan in everything that has protein in it, but you want to get a high dose, like 500 milligrams is not going to hurt most people. And so it may be useful to help to lift you through this time.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and best wishes to you there, Sarah. Let's go to David in St. Pete. Good morning, David.
Hello.
Good morning, David.
Good morning. I have a friend who's, I think she may have severe histamine intolerances or allergies, and I'm wondering, she always has extreme reactions to pharmaceuticals and tends to be one of those persons very sensitive. And so a lot of congestion, muscle pain, some issues, with gastritis. And I'm wondering if this is something you've worked with.
Well, yeah, this is a very common problem today. Toxicity induces problems with tolerance, and toxicity can be emotional toxicity. PTSD is something that can put you into this position. It's interesting that if you get assaulted by mold in your residence, it actually induces a PTSD type of reaction in your body. And so you have to actually get some de-trauma therapy if you're actually detoxing. And so detox your emotions and your spirit as well. And I think someone with the symptoms that your friend has deserves a functional medicine workup. And most functional medicine doctors can actually look at the broader picture of histamine intolerance, possibly mast cell activation, and general toxicity.
I see. I'm just somehow related to the vagus nerve. Is that a fair?
Yes, actually it is. You get autonomic dysfunction when you have PTSD and toxicity.
I see. All right. Well, and you're located in Sarasota. Is that correct, your practice?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Have a great day. And good luck with your friend.
Thank you.
And thanks for calling on in for David. Let's go to Leon. Good morning, Leon.
Good morning. I'm a 75-year-old male, and I would like to not introduce, but I like some recommendation on magnesium supplements.
Yes? What would you like to know about them?
Well, I've been doing a little research, but it's so many products out there, and I'm a little confused about the best one to take.
So magnesium is a very, very important mineral. It affects probably 350 to 400 different enzyme systems in the body. It's a cofactor that is required to have the enzyme work. And so in order to make energy, for instance, to break down glucose into the next step that takes it into the energy production center in your cells, it requires magnesium to break apart the glucose. So if you don't have enough magnesium, you could have low energy. It does lots of other things. And so we get much of our magnesium from plant sources. And so that's why the human diet should include somewhere between 5 and 10 servings of vegetables a day, depending on your size, and also a couple of pieces of fruit, which also contain some magnesium. But the green leafy vegetables are very high in minerals, and we don't get enough of them. And also, industrial farming has depleted the general micronutrient availability in the soil, and so we have depleted plant sources as well. So taking some magnesium does make sense. Magnesium oxide is a relative laxative because it attracts a lot of water. And so it can actually really cause some loose stools. It's not well absorbed. Magnesium glycinate, or any magnesiums that are chelated to amino acids, that means they're attached to amino acids. The magnesium glycinate is attached to a glycine molecule. Glycine is absorbed quite readily in the bowel, and so the magnesium gets pulled right into your circulation without any kind of digestion needed when it's in that form. So it really, really reduces the amount of loose stools that could occur with magnesium supplementation. And most people tolerate somewhere between 200 and 400 milligrams a day, and some people take more. But I wouldn't recommend going any higher than that, especially if you have no knowledge of whether you have kidney problems, because if you don't filter in your kidneys well, you can actually build up a bunch of magnesium. How does that help?
Great. So magnesium glycinate is recommended?
It's a very good supplement. Magnesium citrate is a similar one. Citrate has a little bit more loose stools associated with it, but a lot of people take that one too. And it's a great one to use in a capsule form if you do have constipation, because it does help with a big glass of water to move your stools along.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Harvey. Appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.
Thank you there for calling on in there, Leon. And I do have a couple of people that have been waiting. I've got Linda, Jan, and Tom. Let's go to Linda in Sarasota. Good morning, Linda.
Hey, Dr. Harvey. I'm wondering if you could speak to the topic of gluteal tendinopathy. I've seen some stuff, of course, on Facebook.
Your bum hurts.
And the supplement Provitalize and Previtalize that seems to be associated with that. I don't know if estrogen loss or cortisol issues are the issue with this problem, but if you could...
Neither of those things, I think, is the principle. I think the biggest thing for gluteal tendinopathy or what would eventually turn into sciatica-type problems is posture. Your posture is hurting your hips. And so I think that the first thing to do for gluteal tendinopathy would be to see somebody who does rehabilitative work. So seeing a chiropractor, a rehab chiropractor. These are the people that know the exercises really well to get you better. A chiropractor who does rehab and also uses a class 4 laser to reduce the inflammation in that tendon. There are supplements. There's a supplement from a company called Bioiberica in Spain, synovic tendon ligament. It actually helps to reorganize inflamed tendons and get them healthy again. These things can all be very useful. Muscle activation technique is another therapy that can reorient your posture to help take the pressure off that gluteus tendon.
Oh, see, I have scoliosis, and I'm thinking...
Yes, so you need these therapies.
Yeah, I think they're related, yes.
Yeah, it totally is related because your posture is changed by the scoliosis. It puts pressure on the gluteus muscles to hold you in a different position. So if you can work with somebody that will actually help optimize your body movement around your scoliosis and maybe even reduce the scoliosis because that comes from muscle spasm, muscle shortening.
Yeah.
And there's some work that can be done with that, like a Canadian osteopathy. I have in Sarasota. There's a fellow who does this other form of osteopathy. They don't do like the chiropractic adjustment. They do this really gentle muscular movement. I think I've heard it described as strain counter strain. Also, there's so many different things you can do, but there's no supplement that's going to change this for you, other than what I just described as something that supports specifically the tendon. And there's physical clinical evidence about how this one works. I've seen the electron micrographs of the changes. It's really impressive.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much there, Jan. I'm sorry, Linda. And let's go to Jan. Good morning, Jan.
Yes. Hi.
Hi there.
Hi. I have a friend who has a prostate issue, and he's waiting to see the doctor, and it's taking 6 weeks, and it's got me a little spooked. He's not calling it cancer yet, but it's blocking his prostate. It's grown large, and it's hard to urinate. And I think he's got a real problem. Just wanted to see if there's anything vitamin-wise that might be helpful until we can get a doctor in front of him.
So what you're describing sounds like benign prostatic hypertrophy, meaning that the prostate gland grew. That happens in a lot of aging men. And it can be associated with hormone imbalances. It can be associated with a chronic inflammation in the prostate gland. And so it's really worth it to consider a full functional medicine workup. But if it's as bad as you're describing, he may end up needing some sort of surgery to open up the prostate, because that's what they do when the gland is that overgrown.
That's the plan.
Yeah, there's no
surgery.
Okay. So there's no specific supplement that's going to actually relieve him in 6 weeks. It takes probably 6 months to a year to have hormonal changes shrink the prostate. And if he's having trouble urinating, it's going to be so much easier for him to debulk the inside of that prostate and let the urine flow again.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's exactly what he needs.
Yeah. So there's not much we can do while waiting, but just a warning: if he does have a point where he can't urinate, and this happens sometimes, some little thing will trigger the prostate to get inflamed, and then you can't urinate. I think there was a guy on the show 2 weeks ago that talked about he had a quart of fluid come out because his prostate was bad. So yeah, if urination stops, get to the emergency department.
And you said at the very beginning the benign what? I didn't get those last two words.
Prostatic, as related to the prostate, and hypertrophy. That means big growth.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I missed those last two. Okay, I will let him know. 6 weeks until he can see the doctor. That's what has me kind of spooked, and he doesn't want to go to any more doctors. He wants to go to this guy only.
Yeah, well, it's been oncoming for years, so it's not likely to change overnight unless something happens like an infection.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's important. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Take care, Jan. Good luck with your friend.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Indeed there. Well, I've got Tom, James, and Norm. Let's go to Tom in St. Pete. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Doctor. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you, Tom?
I'm just having some weird issues the last couple days. I worked all week. Yeah, I have like these red splotches on my hands and on my feet around my heels and toes. And this just came about the last day or two.
Oh, really? Anything else going on?
No, I don't have like a sore throat or a cold or just like this tenderness and inflammation in my thumbs are killing me. Yeah, my hands and feet are just like sort of overly sore for.
Yeah, with the red splotches on your extremities. That could be a lot of different things. Do you have any autoimmune diseases or anything like that?
Well, I do have some weird reactions to things because
No, but I mean any diagnosed autoimmune disease.
no, sir. But I was
Okay,
thinking it could even be a weird bug bite or something. I don't know.
not on hands and feet. It sounds like you're having an internal circulatory problem. But with no fevers and no other symptoms, that's a really good question. Maybe you got exposed to something, yes. But if you had your hands in something, your feet wouldn't have been in it, would they?
Oh yes, yeah. Other than working at a self-storage property, I work at the market on Saturdays, so I'm around a lot of people. I was using my hands all day. What I do.
Yeah, but you're not using your feet on them, so you have this thing going on your heels and your hands, right?
Yeah, because here's where I first had a little pain. After I worked that market Saturday, I came home and my heel, I had like a deep pain in my heel, and I iced it down, didn't think much of it, and it felt better.
I think if you're having red splotches and these kind of things showing up on your extremities, you need to go get evaluated. This could be something serious.
Yeah, but I did have blood work done like 3 weeks ago, and I didn't have any,
You didn't have these things 3 weeks ago.
No.
So what happened in the interim? We don't know. And it's like what you're describing is something I can't see, I don't know much about, and I'd say you need to actually see a doctor.
Shane?
Take care.
Well, thanks for calling, and best wishes and best luck to you there, James. Let's go to James in Dade City. Good morning, James.
Good morning.
Hi there.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Love this show. I have a couple of questions about sinus infections. Try to be brief. My sister has been now a week with pretty severe sinus infection. She's on prednisol and amoxicillin, still having issues. So first question is, she went back to teaching, and they just turned the heat on in the classrooms, and she thinks that possibly she came down with sinus infection because, that the air quality is poor. Could that be an issue to get a sinus infection?
Sure. Air handling systems often have bacteria and mold and other things in it that will irritate. Drying out the air. If you're used to humid, moist air and the heat comes on and the air is more dry in the facility, that could cause issues too. Most literature would suggest that you don't start antibiotics or anything for sinus symptoms until you're 3 weeks in, because most adult humans get rid of their sinusitis in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of leads me to two other questions. One is, and I think you kind of answer, what actually causes sinus infections? And it sounds like you're saying bacteria, change in air quality, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you get a challenge to the nasal mucosa. You might get a virus, a bacteria, or a fungus on it that irritates it. Maybe there's an allergen that starts a process and then gets the nose full of mucus, and then bacteria gets stuck in that. You don't get as good circulation. The histamine that's released because of it causes more congestion and more white blood cells and promotes more reaction. One thing to help get rid of symptoms in this, prednisone isn't the best for that. Using some sort of decongestant can help to open up the nasal airways pretty quickly and help to move along. I wouldn't use Afrin or neosynephrine or any of those things for more than 3 days, but when you're really serious, it might move the process forward a little bit, and antihistamines really can be useful to help dry up some of those symptoms.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to ask you, decongestion, is there anything we can kind of do proactively to, and it seems like these sinus infections usually happen in the winter or when the weather's changed, but is there anything we can kind of proactively do to kind of ward off the onslaught of yearly sinus infections?
Yes, I used to get them all the time until I discovered natural medicine, and so I medicate myself basically, but I take combinations of really healthy things like quercetin and vitamin C and N-acetylcysteine. NAC is an amino acid that helps to thin out the mucus and help to detox at the same time. So there are some really good combinations for allergies, like different supplement companies put together the quercetin with vitamin C, with bromelain, with other enzymes and things to help clear up. Oh, another thing is good stinging nettle root, stinging nettle leaf is really good for nasal allergies. And so if you pre-medicate with things like quercetin all winter season long, you are going to likely protect yourself to some extent because it helps with building up your immune stability. It stabilizes mast cells so you don't get as much histamine. Doing really good hydration keeps your nasal mucosa really moist so you don't get dried out and risk getting more infection.
What is that called, please?
Staying hydrated, just getting lots of water on board.
I'm sorry. Okay, I think okay.
And a neti pot. A neti pot is great. If you feel like you're in a crowd, like I was in several crowds this week, and so I came home and I did a neti pot to rinse out possible contaminants that I breathed in while I was with all these hundreds of people in a closed space.
And what did you call that again?
NETI. It's an Indian thing. Ayurvedics have used it for 1,000 years. But it's you can get a squirt bottle that does it. You can use a pot that does it. But basically, it's salt and baking soda in a cup of water that helps to clean out the nose.
Okay, got it. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and wonderful information.
Glad to help.
All right. You guys take care. See ya.
You too.
Thank you there, James. Let's go to Norm in Tampa. Good morning, Norm.
Hey, how you doing? Hey,
good, Norm. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm hanging in there. Listen, I wonder, have you ever heard of the work of Dr. Forrest Tennant and his work with the adhesive arachnoiditis, and where we're implicating things like the Epstein-Barr virus, and in terms of its effect on the immune system and it was causing pain. So I was just wondering if you ever come across his work, because I belong to his study group.
What was his name again?
Forrest Tennant, Dr. Forrest Tennant. And we study these rare diseases such as, the Ehlers-Danlos syndromes and those sort of things. And Epstein-Barr virus is one of those things that pops up and it's been shown to be a causative factor of precipitating pain and other conditions within the body. I just want to know had you ever heard of that, and and what ties it into it is that what he has found is that what is really affecting is the natural medicinal products, as we would call it, rather than going to the more opiates and the
he's a pain specialist who hated opiates, so the Epstein-Barr virus is one of many things that cause chronic inflammation, and so it's one of many things that can induce these kinds of symptoms in people. There are many different viruses that can cause encephalitis, arachnoiditis, and yes, that could be actually a possibility. I like to use a combination of really lifestyle medicine, physical medicine. I don't find that there's very much we can do in supplementation to alter this kind of chronic course. It requires many levels of intervention, and also to find out which areas of inflammation are most important to treat those areas. You need some blood work, and you need an evaluation from somebody skilled in looking at this stuff. So I wouldn't consider using natural things to self-treat this. I would want to go and get some guidance.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what Dr. Tennant, talks about in our discussion. So, I mean, the point is that, what I've just tried to interject is that, what you're saying and what Dr. Tennant is professing are not too far off. I mean, you guys are right on point, and people need to get an understanding of how diseases work and that sort of thing. So I really thank you for this discussion. That's all.
Yes, thanks for calling in. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you there, Norman. Appreciate it very much. And we're down to about the last couple of minutes, so let's try one more. Let's go to David in Tampa. Good morning, Dave.
Hi, good morning.
Hi there.
Hi, Dr. Harvey, how are you?
Excellent. How are you today, David?
I'm pretty good, thanks. And well, if you could answer a couple questions, I'd appreciate that. Are you familiar with, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, ZHU scalp acupuncture to treat Parkinson and tremors?
No, I'm not. I haven't seen any good literature that would suggest that acupuncture would treat Parkinson's. It might reduce a tremor symptom, but it's not going to treat Parkinson's.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. A friend of mine forwarded me some information, apparently from this doctor has facilities in Australia and in China, and I was watching it last night, and they really didn't have any. It wasn't a very good seminar as far as being able. The audio was horrible on it, so I was wondering if you would be able to elaborate on it. And I think I got my elaboration, please.
Yeah, I don't think you missed anything on that audio.
I think so too, because it was they were speaking Chinese mostly, so it was hard to get beyond that as well. So
that would be hard. Yes, I've not seen any good evidence that that would do anything. There are lots of other things you can do for tremor or Parkinson's. You need to find out which it is, though, because there's completely different therapies.
Right there, and I understand there are 6 treatments for Parkinsonisms. So
there's a lot of different approaches, but a lot of it ends up being medication, unfortunately.
Okay.
But there are some deep brain stimulation and things like that that are really changing it. And for essential tremor, which can be horrendous as far as functional debilitation, because you can't write, you can't hold things in your hands. I've watched deep brain surgery actually work. They hit the spot that causes the tremor and it goes away completely. I have a patient that had both sides done out in Seattle, and he has not had a tremor since.
Unfortunately, the neurologists around here 6-8 months before you can get an appointment, so it doesn't. You don't get any immediate relief.
Very true. But you might want to look even deeper. Maybe somebody who's not covered by your insurance, who you can get into sooner.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for your help and advice. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I think I'm going to switch over to emails right now because we have so little time left. Here's one on seborrheic dermatitis. He's had it for years, using prescriptions and a shampoo and oil, sulfur and sulfur soap. So could I recommend any alternative treatments, possibly a sulfur-based shampoo? What I would actually suggest, Bob, is that you get a deeper evaluation. And since you have a chronic inflammatory disorder, look up an autoimmune diet. Basically, you don't really need to look too deeply. What you need to do is eliminate dairy and grain and stick with leans and greens, and you might see a shift there. You also want to make sure you get fish oil on board. And when I say leans and greens, that's lean meat, lean fish, good wild salmon, sardines, mackerel, things like that, to get your fish oil content up. You might even want to get your doctor to check your fish oil content, because if you're low, then you really need to get some help with that, because as long as that's low, your skin is going to be terrible. So yeah, you really want to get an adequate oil inside, so your skin needs lubrication. Your cells need the oil to hold together. And so those things I would recommend first. And then if you don't get anywhere there, get a deeper evaluation from a functional doctor, because I watch things like eczema go away. I want to really appreciate all of you. Thanks for calling in. Great questions today, all over the board. Glad to help you with some new medical information. And I will see you all back next week. Thank you, Bill, for helping me in-house, and Joe for answering those phones. Everyone, have a great week. See you next week.
All righty. Well, and thank you very much, Doc, for a wonderful show. And thanks for all of our callers and participants. You make this show special. And Maddie and Joe for answering the phones. You make this happen. Take care. Stay healthy. You have been listening to the Healthy Steps Radio Show with Dr. Fred Harvey here on WMNF Tampa. Waiting for you like a dear friend is 5 minutes of NPR news, and then get ready for the Sustainable Living Show, hosted today by Tanya Vedovic. So until next Monday at 10 a.m., thank you for supporting and listening to the Healthy Steps Radio Show with Dr. Fred Harvey here on WMNF Tampa, your community conscious radio station. Stay safe, stay thoughtful, and know that you are loved.